Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Tim Donner, Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, Joe Schaefer. This is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. Neither lawsuits, FBI inquiries, jailing of friends and allies, nor the January 6th incident seems to be able to quell the momentum of former President Donald Trump. Even a smattering of primary opponents have stepped down and then stepped up to endorse number 45 to be 47. But where does this leave the merry band of Republican never-Trumpers? So who's feeling pressure? Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and Senator John Thune are just two such folks who didn't make sure that Trump was out for the count before publicly skewering the guy. Well, Liberty Nation has a senior political analyst. He's also an encyclopedia of facts and details, and he's joined us today to discuss Mr. Tim Donner.
Well, I'll tell you what, the never-Trumpers are more desperate than ever because they were pretty successful in forming a sort of never-Trump alliance of strange bedfellows in 2016. That would be disaffected Republicans and those with full-on, with like an emergency case of Trump derangement syndrome. People like Bill Kristol, who basically trashed everything that he ever promoted for the entirety of his adult life in order to support Joe Biden against Donald Trump because he just hates Donald Trump with a passion. And there's so many people like that. But these people now, they're forming around Nikki Haley, and Nikki has done a good job of attracting them and attracting Democrats who want to come over and vote against Trump. But in the end, it's not going to amount to much because the never-Trumpers in 2020 were able to make the case that Trump had weakened the country, that Trump was a danger to the republic, and they managed to make that case successfully enough. This time, they can't make that case. They can try to say Trump will be a dictator. They've been saying that, but they're not really showing up in significant numbers in the primaries. I mean, Trump won a record victory in Iowa. Nobody wins an open primary by 30 points. And he won a decisive victory in New Hampshire. So this Republican race is going to be over soon. And as far as old cocaine Mitch McConnell, he's going to have to make his peace if Trump is elected. He hates Trump with every fiber of his being. He found January 6th to be intolerable. He basically, a lot of people think he was happy to have Biden win and to lose the Senate just to get even with Trump. And he certainly feels that Trump cost him the Senate because of the two Georgia races in early 2021 that the Democrats won both to get a 50-50 tie. And Trump had basically told Georgia voters not to come out because the system was rigged. So Mitch McConnell there's no love lost between him and Donald Trump, but we've known about that. I think, though, the power of the Bill Kristol-led, basically the militant anti-Trump wing of former Republicans who now are perfectly willing to support the left because they hate Trump so much. I don't think that's nearly as much of a factor in 2024 as it was in 20 for sure and 2016.
I'm going to pivot off of that. Joe, let's just imagine that Trump does win the nod and he does win the general. And are we going to see a repeat of what happened in 2017 where, he just couldn't do anything because there were, you had a full majority in both houses in the White House, and yet he was fought with his own party. So is that going to happen again, or are we going to see a resurgence of maybe hey, maybe he could work this out this time with this GOP party.
Now, if Mitch McConnell is still running the United States Senate Republican side of the aisle, it's going to happen again. Mitch McConnell, to go back to what Tim said, Mitch McConnell doesn't just hate Donald Trump. He hates what Donald Trump stands for. He hates what Donald Trump represents. The America First movement, MAGA, whatever, breaking up the swamp. Mitch McConnell is about serving the swamp. Him and his cronies are doing quite well. It's amazing how wealthy you get once you become an elected official in Washington, D.C. So, Mitch McConnell's not on the Donald Trump team. Mitch McConnell's not on the America First team. It's a uniparty in action. These people are much more closely aligned to Joe Biden than they are with Trump supporters. And I'll give you an example of what is going on, this clash between especially pronounced the Senate Democrats and with the Donald Trump movement. We saw that the shocking recording of Carrie Lake had in Arizona of the Arizona party chair trying to bribe her not to run. Powerful people back east, widespread, that means that the establishment in Washington, D.C. Let me tell you what Mitch McConnell is doing. In December 2022, he said, we need to dominate the party primary process. Donald Trump had too much sway over it, and we didn't have the candidates we liked in 2022. We are going to try to control the primary process this time around. Him and his cronies have taken two former executives from the largest hedge fund in America doing business in China, Bridgewater Associates. Not only do they manage state funds for communist China. That's how in deep they are with the regime. Reuters reported just in January, they are doubling down on their investment in China. Mitch McConnell handpicked, the GOP established, handpicked the former CEO of Bridgewater Associates, Dave McCormick, to run in Pennsylvania this year. Steve Daines, head of the Senate Republicans chair, recruited Pete Domenici's daughter, who was also a former executive at Bridgewater Associates, to run in New Mexico. So you have two former executives of this rabidly pro-China hedge fund being handpicked by the GOP establishment to run. This goes against everything that Donald Trump and his supporters are for. And so you see that there is an absolute chasm between the two camps. They are not on the same side. It's not Republicans against Democrats, and this is a squabble. I would almost call it three sides, except for I would say Mitch McConnell's much closer to the establishment Democrats. But it's a uniparty versus America First, and there is some difference between Republicans and Democrats. But when the rubber hits the road, when it really comes to it, they will work together to oppose Donald Trump if it comes to it. So if Donald Trump wins, he is going to face opposition from Mitch McConnell and his people the next 4 years he's in office, unless his supporters can do something to weaken McConnell, maybe get him out of that leadership position, but get those kind of America First Republicans to win primaries. That's the most important thing Trump supporters can do.
I don't
Is the
know if
Never Trumper
anybody is.
movement getting stronger, or is it dying out?
No, I think it's become. I mean, it may be as populated as it ever was, maybe even overpopulated, but it's not getting much attention this year because Trump is leading the popular vote. This is a huge difference from 2016 and 2020. In the course of those two elections, Donald Trump never once held a lead in the popular vote by any account. And certainly in the final results, he lost the popular vote twice. Well, this time he's ahead in the popular vote. And I'll tell you something, if he continues to be ahead in the popular vote, he will certainly win the Electoral College, because the most recent poll released of battleground states, which are the states that will decide the election, Trump is ahead in every single
Just saw
battleground
that.
state, and most of them are outside the margin of error. We're talking Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Georgia, and North Carolina. Trump is ahead in those states, which will decide the election by an average of 6 points. That's a lot to overcome, especially for a president who doesn't really have the advantage of being able to do anything about his major liability, which is his age and his feeble nature. He can't do anything about it. It can only get worse. So,
Right, he can't change his policy on that.
no policy on age.
No policy on that. No amount of plastic surgery. All right, Andrew, you're chomping at the bit. Talk to me.
Well, I think the main thing we're missing out of this entire conversation is that how could Donald Trump even work with Mitch McConnell? He's one step short of, standing on a street corner wearing a paper bag with drool coming to his mouth, mumbling about Russian aggression. So how could he even work with that? But I would echo what Joe Schaefer said, the fact that Trump would be better off trying to oust him from his Senate leadership position. Yes. One thing I'm concerned about, though, is that as Tim alluded to, Trump is feeble. If Mitch McConnell were to start glowing all this praise on Donald Trump may just cave to what Mitch McConnell says, because now McConnell's saying, "Oh, you're so great, you're such a wonderful president." Who knows if he'll do that? But anyway, that's the fear that there is. But at the same time, I don't know if anybody watched his speech during the New Hampshire primary, and he said something that really stood out. He said,
"But I don't get too angry; I get even."
And that's true. So hopefully he does what Mr. Schaefer recommends, and he tries to find different America First MAGA Republicans to lead the party moving forward.
Hey, I might get blowback on this, but I'm going to throw it out there. Why can't the Republican Party get behind who the people want? Why are they trying to say they know what's better? And why do the Democrats do so much of a better job at just holding their nose and everybody getting in line and pushing people through with momentum? Why can't the Republicans do that?
I can name that tune in one note. Control. They cannot control Donald Trump the way they control Mitt Romney, John McCain, George W. Bush, and on the other side, Bill Clinton, Bob Dole, whoever you want to talk about. Trump will not be controlled by any sort of party hierarchy, and that's the root of the problem.
But the interesting thing is that progressives will be controlled by the Democratic establishment. They've proven that. They would rather have power, even if it goes against their own best interests, the perceived power, than to have a Republican win. Whereas Trump supporters have principle. They will not blindly go behind Mitch McConnell and Ron McDaniel. Democrats, they told that line. They said, Bernie, Bernie, Bernie. Okay, we'll all vote for Biden now. And they're going to do it again. So there is party discipline there. And I really have to point it right in the faces of the progressives. These people really have principles when it comes down to it, because so far it's been sorely lacking.
I think they have actually, for the first time, demonstrated the opposite of what you've said, because usually you're right. But when it comes to the Palestinian cause,
yes,
that's a hot mess. That's a whole different subject.
That is not something where they show any signs of being willing to toe the Democratic Party line. Hell, they're holding demonstrations calling Biden Genocide Joe.
It's a fraction of the progressive Democrat establishment, that's a very huge thing for 2024 election.
We
talked about, was it Joe or Tim? You guys mentioned the control. The party has control. They don't have control of Trump. And somebody mentioned an administration that I know Dave Patterson worked under. And I just kind of wanted to see if he had something to say about that.
Well, I think that there are a couple of things that ring true. And when we were discussing the various personalities of the two political parties, I think that you always have to remember that when there's a knife fight, the Democrats will go to a knife fight with guns. The Republicans will go to lunch. And
not with Trump.
But we started this conversation on discussing the Never Trumpers. And I think it's important to realize that there's a segment of the Never Trumpers who were in the Bush administration, W.
Mm-hmm.
And they were highly incensed that the Trump campaign and later the Trump administration were not interested in bringing them on as in the capacity to which they believed they should be used to. And so they immediately turned on him. And during his campaign, there was this letter that 50 or 60 former Bush administration people signed. I mean, they signed their death warrant effectively for the Trump administration. But
they were sure he wasn't going to win.
Yeah, they were so sure. Yeah. But the fact is that this was the core of the Never Trumpers. And what they have found, I think, is and on the flip side, what Trump, I believe, you're going to see more of. I have a lot of people who disagree with this, but nonetheless, I think so. When you realize that former President Trump is what I call a transactional pragmatist. He's all about the transaction, and he does what works. That's what he's all about. And so if he believes that he needs to change a certain attitude because it's not working to get what he wants, then I think he will. And it won't be dramatic, don't get me wrong. I mean, but it will be a subtle change. I think you saw that in New Hampshire. We talked about that before, in which he showed some, conciliatory bent toward the other candidates. I wouldn't bet my life on this, but I do see this as a trend and a good trend too. Now he's never going to be best pals with Mitch McConnell. I mean, but at the same time, we have to realize Mitch McConnell is the minority leader, and he's got a lot of savvy and moxie, and and a lot of people line up behind him. And you're not just going to disrespect him and immediately throw him out because, okay, who's next? And are they going to be any better? I think that
some might argue they couldn't be any worse.
Exactly.
If you would ever show up at the Foxhole Pub in Williamsport, Indiana, you know what some random mainstream America people think about him, and I hear Talking Turtle a lot, and I'm just saying they don't like him.
Well, they may not like him, but he is the minority leader, and when he talks and works behind the scenes, he gets what he wants done. What you have to realize is that you want him to do what you want him to get done, and he did that with a Supreme Court nominee by one vote. That was Mitch McConnell.
Right. That's the only thing that matters to him, really, is the judiciary. And he's done a very effective job. And he certainly did during the Trump administration in running an assembly line of conservative judges and justices through the process. So that's one thing he does well. It's just that nobody likes him. I mean, he's about as popular as the former Redskins owner Dan Snyder. The two most unpopular people in Washington, I think.
It's not just personalities, though. These are different belief systems. These people are not on the same team. Donald Trump supporters and Mitch McConnell Republicans are not part of the same party. Maybe they are in name, but it is in name only. They are two starkly divided camps, and they are opposed to each other. And that's the reality right now.
All right, guys, I know we can talk about this for hours and hours, and it'd be kind of fun and maybe over drinks next time, but the 2024 election cycle is in full swing, all sides pounding away. And so far, no one has really been disappointed, well, except the Never Trumpers, who keep putting up additional obstacles on the track. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel, where you can see all of our TV productions. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for Free Thinking, Free Speech, LibertyNation.com.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are libertynation.com.